Hey everyone, I just wanted to do a short video to give you some practice on actually calculating the CPI, changes in inflation rate, and even practice on the GDP deflator. Um, so this is going to involve potentially pausing the video periodically and actually attempting to do it because this is something that could be asked of you. So just to review, remember that the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is the most commonly used measurement to figure out inflation. And basically, here's how it works. I mean, you've already watched videos on what the Consumer Price Index is. You know, it's thousands of items that consumers buy measured month after month and quarter after quarter to see what's happening to general prices in the economy. But here's how it works when you're looking at the numbers. So the base year is always given an index of 100. And the reason that you do that is so that when you measure it off of the base year, if it's 150 for the year that you're talking about, then you know that prices have risen 50%. So that's why you make the base year 100. Just to let you know, most economists use the base year as 1987. But there's no particular reason for that, and in our scenarios we can use whatever year we want. But each year compared to the base year is also given an index number. That number might be 125, 150. You know, if prices went down, it could be 90, etc. But here's the basic equation. You should definitely write this down in your notes. It's the price of the market basket in the current year over the price of the market basket in the base year times 100. Right? So, you know, obviously you can see that if the, the price of the market basket in the base year is 100, then those hundreds are just going to cancel out and it's going to be the price of the market basket. But if you're using actual physical numbers, then it'll turn it into an index number. So let's do an example. So let's say that in 1997 the market basket is, we're just going to really simplify it, we're going to have two things, movies and pizza. So a movie cost $6 and a pizza cost $14 in 1997. So the total is $20 and the index of the base year equals 100. Okay, so those were the prices in 1997, $20 for the CPI. Well, in 2009 a movie cost $8 and a pizza costs $17. So when you add that up, that's $25, right? So if you go back to the equation, it would be pretty simple. It would be 25 over 20 times 100. And if you do that, you get an index of 125, right? So what does that actually mean, an index of 125? It's not that prices went up $25, it's that prices went up 25%. Okay, so that means there was an inflation rate of 25% between 1997 and 2009. You know, if you were just doing it in your head, you know, you might say to yourself, well, it rose $5, the index. So $5 as a function of $20 is 25%. And that's basically what that equation is doing. So an item, another way to think about it is an item that cost $100 in 1997 would cost $125 in 2009. Pretty simple. So let's move forward a little bit. So as you can see here, all of a sudden we're going back to nominal GDP and real GDP. And you see that this equation is the CPI or the GDP deflator. And what you're going to see moving forward as we go through other modules is that I'm going to pretty much use them interchangeably. They're both indexes that show inflation. And the equations are basically exactly the same. It's the current year over the base year times 100. And so that's, you know, nominal GDP over real GDP times 100, right? So let's check out what's happening, and you'll see how the CPI and the GDP deflator are very, very similar. So in year one, we have 10 units of output, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and different prices per unit. So it's just simple multiplication. Here's the equation for the CPI. So let's put in the numbers, and you guys can pause the video and try them yourself. but the nominal GDP is going to be 40 in the first year, 50 in the second year, 90 in the third, 160 in the fourth, and 100 in the fifth year. And so remember that real GDP is going to be, if the base year is year one, it's going to be all of these production numbers multiplied by the price in the original year, because real GDP just shows the increase in production. So while that's going to be the same, look at this. You didn't increase any production. All that happened is price increases. So this should also be 40, because we're using we're assuming that prices did not increase. Did production increase? Well, in year 3 it finally did. So what's 15 times 4? It's 60. What's 20 times 4? It's 80. What's 25 times 4? It's 100. Okay, so you can see that the nominal GDP and the real GDP are different because of price changes. So now that we have those two numbers, we can figure out the CPI and the GDP deflator using the year one as the base year. So, 50 over 40 times 100, right? That's going to be 125. 90 over 40 times 100. And so on and so forth. So pause the video and do those calculations. And if you're using year one as the base year and it's 100, the inflation rate is then very easy to figure out. So the first year, there's going to be no inflation rate because that's the base year. And here's the equation for the inflation rate. You've seen it before in other videos, but it's basically year 2 minus year 1 over year 1 times 100. So obviously there's no inflation rate in the first year because it's the base year, but a lot of times you can just look at this number. So the second year it's 25%, and the third year it's 20%. Now if you were comparing it to the base year, it would be 50%, which some of you guys might have put down, but if you're comparing year 3 to year 2, then you do 150 minus 125 over 125 and you get 20%. So then moving forward, 200 minus 150, which is going to be 50, over 150, so that should be 33%. And then in the last year, you go back down, and here the inflation rate is going to be obviously negative, negative 50% because prices were cut in half, it looks like. Okay, so you just watched the video on how to do that chart. Here's the exact same chart. Pause the video, attempt it on your own. Pay attention to the details. This is using year 3 as the base year, not year 1. Pause the video now, go through the equations, and then go ahead and start the video, and I'm going to show you what the answers are right now. So check the answers against what you did, and these are the types of things that can show up on an exam. Just making sure that I'll always give you sort of these equations. The CPI and the GDP deflator. I won't expect you to memorize that, but I will expect you to be able to understand how to manipulate the numbers.